Thank you. I am so very excited about this next session. There's so much great work done in out of home globally, and we should really let ourselves be inspired by that. I am a very proud member of the World Out of Home Organization Board, which is an organization that does so much for our industry, both when it comes to inspire, but also inspire us, inspire advertisers, and also helping us become better, working on standards and measurements and really uniting us in a big global group. They have been incredibly helpful to the industry and to us here at the OAAA in this past difficult year, bringing us together and having given us a chance to share ideas and experiences that we've been going through in this pandemic. So to be able to have Tom here, who's my very good friend and one of the smartest people I know in the industry, and talking about what they're doing and the situation globally is a huge honor. Also very honored to have Christian Schmaltz here, a real bigwig in the industry, joining Tom on stage and talking about important things that are happening in Germany and I think in the world. So with that, I want to turn it over to Tom and Christian to take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, and thank you too for including an international slot in your packed program. We absolutely love working with you, and we love working with the OAAA team, so it's a real pleasure to do this. And when we spoke a little while ago, you asked me to find a topic that brings new ideas and new learnings to your members, and ideally one that aligns with your future-proof conference theme. And by the way, I think that's a really clever theme. And when you asked me that, I immediately thought of our distinguished guest, Christian Schmaltz, because to me, he is an absolute future-proof man, and he's one of the most talented CEOs in international media today. Additionally, his company Ströer not only is the market leader in Europe's largest economy, but it operates a business model which is also future-proof, and which you're now going to hear a lot about from Christian. So by way of introduction, here are a few of Christian's impressive career highlights. He studied at Munich and Cardiff universities, majoring in no fewer than four subjects: political science, philosophy, literature, and sociology. And after graduating, he joined Mediacom in Munich, where he became the youngest ever managing director in the group's history, and within 10 years became their worldwide chief operating officer. I am so jealous, Christian. And then in 2012, he left Mediacom to join Ströer as chief operating officer and became co-CEO in 2017. And he also serves on the board of the World Out of Home organization. Now, from all of that, you might think that for Christian, it's work, work, work. But I can tell you it's not. He's a great fun guy. He's a great family guy. And he has a lot of hobbies and some intriguing hobbies. And one of them he told me about recently is he's a collector of whiskey. Can you believe it? A collector of whiskey. And he has no fewer than 100 bottles of fine aged Scotch in his cellar. So I can't wait for the invitation when I'm in Germany next, Christian. But I can assure you he's as sober as a judge today, and he's ready to face the music. So very welcome, Christian. How are you?
Thank you very much, Tom. Very well. I honestly have to get my wife seeing that slot, because I think she's not aware of what kind of husband she has. So thank you very much for the really nice introduction, and happy to be here, and not sure if there is much we can share with the US community that is helpful, but we'll try our very best.
Good. Okay, so fasten your safety belt, and let me just drift into the first question. I think everybody would be intrigued to hear from you to describe Ströer's business model and explain your local hero versus global champion theory.
Well, I think it's there is probably two aspects about it. The first one is that we think that out of home is in many areas a very local business, and we've seen that in the media industry You see, on the one hand, global players that are able to scale their business, especially when it comes down to tech and data. And I think US-based platforms are very good examples for that. And I think you need to be careful to get into tough competition with them, because the kind of global scalability brings such a lot of advantages that it's very difficult to compete. And I think our feeling is a better strategy is then if the global model doesn't work, that you concentrate on what you can do locally and try to increase your footprint in an individual market in a way so that your overall offering is just very different to what global standards from those, how we call them, global champions like Google, Facebook or Amazon do. And on that basis, we've been in the last years concentrating on the German market and diversified our core business out of home and went into online digital marketing businesses, dialogue marketing as well, just to create something in the German market that is very unique there and is for local clients a very interesting and compelling proposition.
Great, certainly is. And this big decision you took to diversify from out of home, your traditional business, into online media has clearly paid off handsomely. With revenues rising 2.8 times from 560 million euros in 2012 to 1.6 billion in 2019, and EBITDA growth 3.5 times from 107 million euros to 380 million euros in the same period. Whose idea was it to make the bold move in 2012, the year you joined, by the way? I see that. And why do you think no other major out-of-home company in Europe has tried to emulate this successful model?
Well, I think it was a longer decision making process. I think the most important point was the support of the two founding families, and especially my partner, the still co-CEO Udo Müller, who founded the company and is still the biggest shareholder. And I think he was heavily supporting it and driving it. And we just had at that time the feeling that we are just at the tipping point where out of home becomes more and more digital. We just at that time started to digitize our indoor inventory in train stations, shopping malls, public transportation systems. And at least our feeling was that if out of home becomes more digital, the ways how you trade it, the ways how you package it will have a lot of familiarities with the online business. So at the end of the day, a screen is a screen. And even if a public screen is, of course, different than a personal or private screen, a mobile device, the underlying mechanics on the long run and the ad serving technologies, the way you integrate data is very similar. And our feeling was, for those reasons, connecting the internet and the outernet is probably a smart idea, because you can leverage tech, you can leverage data across the different media, and ultimately you approach the same clients and agencies. And if you have a bigger share of wallet across different media, you're maybe also seen more than before as a partner and not only as a media vendor. And I think that was the original idea. And I think the advantage of being a family-founded, family-driven business is that you can take brave decisions. And I think it was not free of risks. And especially in the first year, we had a lot of investors that didn't fully understand it, that they were afraid that we diversify too much and don't focus enough on our core business. But I think over the long run, we could prove that the decision was right. And I think also that our assumptions how the market would evolve were, at least over the last couple of years, not completely wrong.
So it was actually in gestation for a year or two before you actually threw the switch.
Yeah, it's. I think sometimes it's also good if your business is not in perfect shape. And I think Ströer had their IPO back in 2010, and I think after a strong year, the second one was weaker. And I think at that time, I mean, it's almost 10 years ago now, 2012, you could see that more and more agencies and clients spend more and more money, but even more and more of their time with online and digital media. So I think also the integration of online and digital topics in your portfolio just gave us more reasons to approach clients. There is constantly more innovation. So I think part of the strategic decision was probably also a tactical one. Yeah, there we could see that we were struggling at that time a little bit on the sales side, and yeah, I think that was probably also an important driver. Post-rationalizing stuff, I think is always leads to very smart strategic decisions. Sometimes you just do something because you feel like it's time to change something and bring back more momentum to the company.
So attack is the best means of defense. I get it. Great.
Exactly.
So look, last year amidst the disruptive impact of COVID and steep declines in media spend everywhere, including Germany, you posted a very strong EBITDA number of 275 million euros. I can tell you, you would be the envy of most media companies in Europe. And did that come mainly from your non-out-of-home side of the business?
Yeah, I think there's two aspects probably around last year. On the one hand, we call it plus businesses. So the businesses that we attach to out-of-home. So we call our strategy out-of-home plus. So it's clear that we are an out-of-home company, but we add different business lines. And yes, the plus businesses, and that's digital publishing, online ad sales, digital marketing services, dialogue marketing, direct sales, email marketing. All of those businesses performed at least as pre-COVID or even better. So I think at that time, 55% of the company were in very good shape and sometimes even benefiting from the pandemic. And I think and therefore they could overcompensate at least parts of the declines of out-of-home. Nevertheless, I think our out-of-home business was also doing okay-ish given the circumstances. As we have a lot of local customers, we have a strong focus on SME business where you have long-term contracts, and I think that was another aspect that helped. But clearly, I think all the criticism that we sometimes get for not focusing enough on out-of-home and to being too diversified, I think in that situation, it just proved that, especially in tricky times, it's sometimes very good if you're not a one-trick pony, but have different areas where you can also get through those difficult phases or crises like the current COVID development.
No, absolutely. And, there will be people watching this, and there have been sort of lots of companies considering this move that you made. And one of the questions they ask is, where do the main areas of synergy lie between out-of-home and online?
Yeah, I think if I talk about it in general, I think at the moment we focus on to develop our out-of-home business on the digitization of inventory. I think that's where you probably won't get a lot of help from having online and publishing business as well. But secondly, we try to, in combination with the digitization, get smarter with our underlying ERP, with our supply side platform, where we also sell the digital inventory with the data management platform that we use to deliver targeting profiles. That's something where our online business helps and where the synergies are. So meanwhile, we use one SSP setup for both online and digital out-of-home media. We work with the same DSPs that we connect to both our online business as well as the digital out-of-home inventory. So there is clearly synergies. As I said, we focus a lot on local sales, where approaching small and mid-sized enterprises, the cost of sales for those smaller tickets are quite high. So there's always a big synergy if you sell two products ultimately to those customers and are able to share the cost of sales. So there is also a lot of synergy potential. And I think, as I said before, the integrated offering that we try to set up, and especially in the area of digital out-of-home, connect online, also publishing assets, and digital out-of-home is is quite crucial. I think the best example is probably our largest publishing asset, T-Online. Maybe surprising for especially people in the US. It's maybe comparable to Yahoo. So it's the largest portal in Germany, has more than 30 million email accounts posted there, including a news and publishing section. And we bought that asset 6 years ago from one of the big telcos, Deutsche Telekom, and then completely turned it around, hired new journalists, developed it. And what we did on top is creating local versions of the website so that we can approach with a combination of local out-of-home inventory and local digital content and a small local publishing platform, SMEs. We show also on the digital out-of-home inventory local content from the various cities. We try to sell it in combination also to large customers that get around T-Online content, which is the news partner on digital out-of-home screens, where we show both advertising and content. You can advertise in the same context. So we try to bundle that together, have multi-screen offerings where clients can reach via their trading desk or demand-side platform more than 45 million uniques. That's 65% of the German population across the various screens. So we really try to bring that internet, outernet logics together around our publishing assets.
And are your sales teams blended, Christian, or you have a dedicated, or is it a mixture?
As always, it's a mixture. We have really integrated teams where I would say they try to operate like little media agencies that work cross media and are also skilled to show the clients the strength of the combined and cross media products. But we have also specialists because there are clients or also agencies that just want to have very specific products per medium. So we try to make sure that our sales setup is always reflecting a little bit the interest of the various clients, target groups and agency interests. And not everyone wants it cross media or mixed up. Some just want one or prefer to have a real specialist on the other side. So it's still a hybrid model that we work with.
Sure. Thank you. So look, in your online business, 1/3 of revenues come from your own publishing business and websites and apps. And 2/3 of revenue comes from over 2,000 websites and apps that you operate through exclusive sales agreements. Now, are the platforms which are on sales agreements more complex to manage? And do you have to compete with big tech for the rights?
Yeah, I think when we started the business back in 2012, there was a lot of manual work because we bought different ad sales houses and also marketplaces, supply side platforms, and brought it together. I think at that time it was really complex to handle, especially when you do the sales job for both own assets and third-party assets. But what we've done over time, developing our tech infrastructure in a way that we can really work in a highly automated way with third-party players and make it as convenient as possible for them and for us with tagging systems that allow us to work on the advertising inventory on the websites without constantly involving the publisher and taking their time. So yes, in general, it is complex and used to be complex, but over time, there is a lot of stuff that you can solve with smarter tech. And yes, I think in that area, we compete with Google Ad Network or even DoubleClick Bid Manager. We compete probably also with Facebook in some areas. And I think that's where we come back to what you originally mentioned, the difference between global champions and local heroes, as we call it. There's probably no doubt that Google has the better global scalable technology, and we will never get nearby, and that's also not our target. But they need to focus on delivering the best product across all the countries that they have. So they cannot individualize stuff for every client. They cannot match all the specifics of every country. So they need to focus on the similarities across many, many countries and standardizing things. And that's where we try to individualize the offerings towards publisher in a smarter way, delivering, for instance, more complex ad formats, delivering ad formats that do only exist in Germany, and the same for customers or clients, that we try to, well, tailor our offering for them, individualized stuff that is probably too complex for Google, but it's something what we can do. So we have by far a higher share of managed service that requires also more people. But what we see is that ultimately we, on the one hand, deliver extra value to agencies and advertisers, and we deliver therefore extra money to publishers. On that basis, we take a higher share because the job that we deliver is more complex and requires more work. But I think if you add value to the ad market, then you can compete. But I would say it's not direct competition. We try to find a specific niche that Google, Facebook, and meanwhile also Amazon in some areas doesn't deliver. And I think that's...
You're proving the point that smart national operators can dance around the big tech guys to provide more tailored and more localized services in a very successful way, as you're doing. Very much in line with your local heroes and global champions theory. Where are you in Germany now with programmatic trading, Christian, both at out of home level nationally and in store?
Maybe to start with the online business as a reference, at the moment the German market is slightly below 50% as far as the share of programmatic advertising in online and mobile marketing is concerned. Our share is slightly higher, around 56, 57%, so probably lagging behind the US, where I guess we are already far beyond 70%. But in general, you see the trend towards higher share of automation and programmatic trading, also in the online world. And we try to transfer the general logics and also the systems to digital out of home already in 2014. Where we had the first test campaigns, and then we had 3 years that were rather depressing because there was a lot of interest from clients and agencies. A lot of them wanted to have highlight cases, exemplary cases for the Cannes Festival and so on. But we had really problems to educate the market in a way that they accepted to use that trading model also for digital out of home. And after 3-4 years, suddenly mid of 2018, the whole thing exploded. Yeah, we had by then more and more global DSPs connected to the business, like the Trade Desk, like Adform, and that I think gave probably an extra kicker to the business. And meanwhile, pre-COVID in 2019, the share of programmatic revenues for digital out of home in our business was around 25%. In the COVID year in 2020, we've been at 38%. So what you could see similar to the online world, I think the pandemic brought some kind of acceleration towards any
Absolutely.
kind of digital and automated trading. So my feeling is we are quite advanced here. But it's fair to say we didn't start with the whole thing 2 years ago, like maybe other of our peers in other countries. We started 7-8 years ago. So we already have another learning curve, I guess.
Good. I'm conscious of the clock running down. There's 2 more questions that are relevant to the US audience I want to get in. And I know you don't claim to be an expert on the United States out of home, but are any of the key US players who operate like Struer in their business model?
Good question. Interesting. Yeah, if an Irishman asks a German to evaluate the US market, not sure if the result is an excellent one, but I think we're a hybrid. If I look at the bigger US players, I think the focus on our SME business, and really going for that long-term contracts with small clients, signage business. I think that's something where I would say Lamar would be our benchmark. I think that's where we want to get to. I think when we see what Outfront, for instance, also Clear Channel do as far as digitization of inventory, both indoor and roadside is concerned, I think that's also something that we try to do. So we probably try to bring the profile of the 2 or 3 US players together into one company, because we think that's, if your market share is big enough, that's probably the optimum that you can get to, even if it's challenging.
Sure. And you know, do you see big differences between the US and Germany, or are they quite similar?
I think, I mean, the US market is by far bigger, and I think it's less consolidated. And I think in general, fragmentation is probably bigger. But I think the fact that it's not as both countries are not very centralized, but have more a federal structure, I think that leads to a similarity. And that's when I mentioned Lamar, I think there is a huge potential for local and regional business, both in the US as well as Germany. It's even better if you put that national layer on top. But I think in the general infrastructure and the logics, how the country operates and how the out-of-home market is organized, apart from maybe the fact that we are more consolidated, is very similar. I think both countries are very different to the UK probably, or France, more centralized countries. So I think in general, comparable markets.
Right. So we're just about out of time. One quick last question, and if you would just give me a short yes or no answer, but I know you're a public company and you have to be careful, but do you separate your out-of-home KPIs from your online KPIs?
Well, in the reporting to the capital market, probably not. We look at the same financial KPIs, but of course, I think the whole audience reach monetization KPIs are slightly different, but far more dynamic in the online or digital world today. But I think on the mid to long run, KPIs might be very similar. The more out-of-home digitizes, the more trading becomes more automated. I think the more you work with the real-time audience that you have in front of a location, I think the more you see similar KPIs and trackings, I guess.
Yeah, I asked the question because I find your business model fascinating, but I find it even more fascinating that more companies are not trying to emulate what you're doing. And I think you could have a third business, which is exporting your holy grail business model to the rest of the world. And if you do that, I'd like to be an investor in that, Christian. But what I want to say is that I know there are lots more questions that I know our American friends will have, and I'm sure that if they channel those through Anna or through Richard Satterley in the WOO, you'd be happy to answer them later. But I just want to finish off by thanking you so much for sharing such a hugely successful story with us. We're just in awe of your success, and we hope you keep it going, Christian. And my last request is you keep a bottle of that Scotch for me for next in Germany. So thank you very much, and thank you, Anna and the OAAA for giving us this window. And I hand back now to Lisa.